Welcome to creating a database with a DB browser. So in this video, what we'll learn to do is how to create a table. First, we'll create the database. Then we'll create a table in the database using the DB browser. Once we create the table, actually during the process of creating the table, we'll define the fields, which are the columns. We'll define what their data types are, whether they're a primary key. If you remember, primary key is one or more columns when you combine them. Generally, for us, we'll be using one column, but sometimes we may need two columns to make it unique. So a primary key basically is one or two columns that, when you add them together, make the record, the row, unique. Okay. Unique will also we'll check that off also in the DB browser. Also, part of the fields will decide whether it should be not null, which means when we actually create a record, do we allow it to be null, empty, or are we going to force the user to put some value in there? And then the last thing is this AI, this auto incrementer. Generally, we'll use that for a primary key, which we will have the database generate that for us. In other words, we won't have to sort of figure out, okay, what's a unique identifier if we're using an integer, and we'll let the database manage that piece of it. And then the last thing we'll do is adding some data to our table. Okay, so the table I'm going to do is something we've done in class, or a simplified version of it. Actually, we haven't done it. A student table. Well, in the student table, what I want to define, the fields are, one of them is going to be the ID. You can think of it as an OSIS. We'll make it an integer. We'll make this our primary key because every student ID should be unique. And we'll definitely make it not null. And we'll make the database, when a record's created, make that generate the ID number for us so we don't have to do that. And then we'll have a first name, which is going to be a text. And we should force them to put something in, so it can't be a blank, so we'll say not null. Same thing for the last name. An address, let's make that should be grade level. Address should be text, not null. And grade level, we could make that an integer. And we should also make that not null. Okay, GPA, well, we could make that definitely, we can leave that as a null because the GPA could be filled in later on. All right, so let's get to it. Let me open up a DB browser. As you can see, now my DB browser, I'm on a Mac, so the front may look a little different, but some of it may look different, but I think it's pretty close to it. So first thing I want to do is create a new database. So I'm going to call this database, let's see, I'll put it in here. Let's see where I want to put this. I'll just leave it here. This is good enough. Let's call this, let's say, student. And we should be able to save that. And now what it's going to do is it's going to pop up, do you want to create a table? Before I do that, let me just cancel it and let me just save. Actually, it's empty. So what we'll do is we'll just go straight into creating a table. So let's go and create a table. So this table is going to be called student. Okay, so right away you'll see that we're creating a table called student. The next thing we need to do, so that's, if you want to call it students, that would be the name of your table. Some of you may have more than one table, so you have to do this. You'll create the first table and then create the second table. Okay, so let's now add these fields. These are our columns. So the first one I said was going to be an ID. We're going to make it an integer. Now let me just make this a little bit bigger so we can see this. I'm going to focus on the ones that are more important for us. Okay, so we want to definitely make it a primary key. Okay, we also want to make it not null. Okay, we want to do auto increment because we want the database to give it a unique ID, and just to say that it's going to be unique, we check that off. Okay, so that's the first one. Let's add the next one. We said was going to be the first name, and we said that that was going to be a text, and we said we're going to make it not null, but that's it. Okay, then the next one we want to add the last name, and we'll make that also a text, and we'll make it not null. And let's add the other column, which we said was going to be the address. Again, that'll be text and not null. We'll add the grade level, and we'll make that an integer, and that'll also be not null. Okay, and the last one is the GPA. Let's add that. Call that GPA. And we should make this a real number, right? And it can be null, and I think that should be it. So let's hit OK. And you should see here that we have all of our fields defined, and you can see that this one is our primary key. Okay, now once we've defined that, I think what we should do though is let's save this. Actually, what do you call it? It's called write changes. Let's do write changes, and that's basically saving the database. Now let's go into browse data, and of course it's empty. And let's add a new record. So you click on new record, and again the ID here is perfectly, it's generated, so we don't have to touch that. Now for the next one is first name, and let's call it David as one, and we'll put last name, we'll just make up Canaan. And let's put address of 2015 Bell Boulevard. Okay, we'll put a grade level. You can do it on this site too if you wanted to, or you can do it directly in there. So we'll make grade level, let's say 9th grade, and GPA we'll just leave alone, and so that'll be the first one. I don't think I need this. We can close that. Now let me just make this a little bit bigger. Okay. Now let's add another record. Let's say Sabrina. Sing. Let's say Bell. Let's say 2020. Let's say 215th Street. Oops. 15th Street. Bell Boulevard, Bayside. Okay. So, and then we'll put, let's say this will should also be 9th grade, and we should have that. Okay. So we can close this actually just to get a little bit more room. Let's make that a little bit bigger. There we go. Don't really need this. There we go. Just get rid of that, make it more room for us. Okay. And so you get the idea of, creating tables. And then don't forget to, when you're done, is every periodic, just save it, write changes. Okay, so this saves the database. And in case when you actually go to exit let's say quit DB browser, it'll ask you to save it if you didn't. Okay, save changes. So this is how we create our database.